7 years ago, I was given this book, and the author's sitting right over here, Roy Williams, and in the early pages of this book, titled Preparing Heirs, I encountered an alarming statistic. A 70% failure rate of generational businesses being passed down, or generational wealth being passed down to the next succeeding generation. That's a 70% failure rate. That got my attention. And it wasn't. That failure rate was not because of the usual suspects of, oh, gee, poor legal planning, poor tax planning, bad economy, high tax rate. No, that wasn't what it was. It was a breakdown of trust and communication inside of the family. Inside the family. And that failure to have that communication and trust inside the family led to the older generation failing to prepare the next generation. So the legal documents were way down the list of the reasons for failures. At this point, we already had a stack of legal documents that we'd had drawn up that were wills and trusts and powers of attorney, and you know the list, and it was a big old stack. But we had spent no time working with the next generation of heirs. This would have been in the 2000s, early decade. So today we are not going to talk about wills and trusts and the like. We're going to only talk about the people, family people that need to be prepared. Obviously, one of the reasons luck didn't work last time, or did work last time and won't work this time, is the size and complexity of the business has changed. So I called the author, Roy Williams, and I think I knew what my desired outcome was, what the results were that I was looking for, but I was really naive as to the route that he would take us on. I was probably still a little bit hung up with those really neat documents we had, but that wasn't where we went. Mark, take us down that road.
The PH process, our family shortened Preparing Heirs to just PH, began with lengthy interviews with 3 coaches and each one of the family members. And it's really neat having the coach here today. I did not know Roy was going to be here. That's neat. It was an engaging 4+ hour interview. The purpose of the interview was to get to know us and to get to know how we as a family interacted with one another. Questions were in-depth and probing. I found myself wondering during the interview and after the interview, would the rest of the family ask that question? My mom, my dad, brother, 2 sisters, my wife? How did they answer that question? The coaches from the Williams Group had to get to know us before they could effectively coach us. The other thing they were doing is they had to find out if there were any buried elephants in the family. They had to ask a lot of questions. Needless to say, the interviews may have created a little tension in the Ganahl family. This was 2004. The next step for our family was to clear calendar space, arrange babysitters for a weekend away, and head to a hotel with our coaches and start the process. We spent 9 weekends over 2 years in a nice hotel in Newport Beach. Typically, when a nice hotel and the Ganahl family are in the same sentence, it means fun. We're having a good time. During these weekends, I would put it a little differently. We were on the clock. We were there to work. And a very large portion of our work together surrounded the idea of this word, and that word is trust. Trust in our family is referred to as a 3-legged stool. Without all 3 legs, the trust is broken. A successful family must have all 3 legs. Leg 1, reliability. Do what you say you are going to do. Be where you say you are going to be. Commitments are kept. And it's done over and over and over. If we say we will do something, we do it, period. Leg 2, sincerity. The book PH, or Preparing Heirs, defines sincerity as, quote, our internal story matches up well with, quote, our outer story. I'd say it like this. There's not a disconnect between our words and our behaviors. What comes out of my mouth is not spin, it's not gossip, it's not lies. It's real.
And the third leg is the one that's, for me, would have been the easiest one to miss. And it's competence. I can best illustrate it with a story. Picture you're the CEO or running a business, and your CFO is highly reliable. He brings you the financial statements the third day after the close of the business month, over and over. He's totally sincere, leg two. Whatever comes out of here, he's a straight shooter. And also assume for the moment that the statements are frequently wrong. Would you trust him? He's sincere. He's reliable. But no, you wouldn't. So competence was an important piece because that meant that whoever was playing a role in the business had to be competent. They had to be all three, but they also had to be competent to the task or the job or the responsibility that they had. No legacies. And that's the same thing. That same thing is true inside the family. There's roles that we play in the family, and we must also be competent to those roles. All right, we've given you kind of the target that we were aiming at for those 9 meetings. It was called trust, but that sounds kind of, oh, so easy. There was more.
Yeah, additional perspective on those 9 weekends. Did I mention that? 18 days, 2.5 years. I said earlier we were, quote, on the clock. And in order to earn the trust that we've both spoke about, some tough conversations had to happen. And in our family, we called them crucial conversations. Imagine this. You're sitting in a room. You're sitting in the middle of a room, surrounded by your coaches and your family, and you're with your mom, your dad, your brother, or your sister, and you're having a crucial conversation, visible and being openly coached. Does that sound like fun? It was difficult. But today we have the perspective of 5 years. We finished our meetings in 2006. So with that 5-year perspective, we have a deeper appreciation for the PH process. But trust me, when PH weekends were approaching, there was a lot of inner anxiety and so forth, but we never skipped those meetings. We always made them, and if we had to be in the middle of the room for a crucial, we were there.
After the first of the 9 meetings, I received an email from one of the family members. Let me read it to you. Quote, I know there will be more uncomfortable moments to come. I am also aware from life's journey thus far, that's how we learn and grow. Thanks for taking us on this exciting journey together, and here's to learning, growing, and loving that will come from it. Wow. I began to realize this thing called PH just might. We spent the next 8 weekends, 8 meetings spread out over 2+ years, working on that trust and communication. But rather than take you through those 8 meetings, let me just skip to the end and looking back and tell you about some of the lessons that we learned along the way. Lesson number 1. We were not as good as we thought we were in the area of communication.
But boy, in the beginning, we really did think we were good. After all, we had a lot of things that worked very well inside of our family. We traveled together, spent holidays, birthdays, graduations, baptisms, family stuff, spent it together. We spoke with one another often. We were a connected family. In general, we were a family that loved and cared for one another. We were what I would call a functional family. We had the same value system. But even with that great foundation, we still required 2+ years with coaches. I asked my family recently to reflect on some of the lessons learned. Here's what I heard. We are tougher than we knew. We survived challenging topics and conversations. We actually lived to tell about it. We gained humility. We don't know everything. We have maintained a commitment to spend time together. We gained a self-awareness about how we come across to one another. We are better equipped in business to handle challenging encounters. And finally, we have more crucial conversations when they become necessary. But my favorite had to come from Mom. She said, I liked it better when you guys were kids, like under 10 years old. And when you asked why, I got to say, because Mom says so. Mother, those days are long gone.
Thanks for that clarification too, Mark. Okay, lesson number 2. To be really good at this idea of trust and communication, we had to learn some skills, some new skills, and then we had to practice those skills. And let me tell you for sure, those skills are not genetic. You need to learn them. We needed to learn them. And because our coaches knew so much about us, they knew where the bones were buried, they knew which things, which crucial conversations we needed to have in order to progress to the next level. And they weren't going to let us get there until we had it out. We had that conversation. But thank you for that. Even though it created a lot of anxiety and discomfort, we did get it done. All right, lesson number 3. The real gift that was being passed from generation to generation was not the assets. The real gift being passed down in the generations was a common mission supported by common values and authentic trust, which Mark defined for you earlier. And if we could successfully pass these 3, mission, values, and trust, on to the next generation, when we add a successful family business to it, that would be a blessing. On the other hand, if we could not pass those 3 along, the business would become a curse and just one more reason to fight.
Our 9 meetings over 2.5 years did not complete the PH process. We did not get a diploma and leave there and say, been there, done that. Our last meeting with coaches was 5 years ago. This month, in fact, it was 2006. We have continued with the family meetings on our own. Today, the structure looks like this. We meet quarterly for 3 to 4 hours. Not a hotel room, but one of the family members' living room. We establish a facilitator for a period of 1 year, 4 meetings. Only one rule, Mom and Dad don't facilitate, only the kids. We set agendas in advance, and finally we keep minutes and distribute after the meeting. In fact, we have a meeting this Sunday. So again, the PH process is an enduring habit or a way of life for the Ganahl family, and we are all grateful for it. Thank you, Roy.
So far, out of those 6 years, we've missed 1 family meeting, 1 quarterly meeting, but we have an excuse. It was the summer of 2010 meeting and 2 grandchildren were born, so that's our excuse. It's all their fault. All right, one last lesson from the process, and that is this. Preparing heirs is a lifelong process, and we're far done. Now, I've stationed in the audience over at table 18 our fact checkers. They're the rest of the family. So if there's anything you just don't quite believe, go check with them and maybe they can straighten you out. And we have Roy Williams over here, who is one of the coaches in the room who kept us on the straight and narrow. Thank you all very much. It's been a delight to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was extraordinary.